So we're back at it again. I'm Coach Chris Williams, the Lead the Way Learning Academy. It is College Readiness Wednesday, where we're giving you all the inside access to universities here locally and beyond Ohio as well. So thank you all that are joining us live. And I want to also thank those who will be joining us on demand on our YouTube. If you're unable to make it to this session, we don't want you guys to miss out on this great information. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our phenomenal liaison, Kirsten Fox, who just continues to bring us awesome resources and, university exposure. So Kirsten, thank you for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks, Coach Chris. Well, today we are joined by James Prysock III from Otterbein University, and I'm going to introduce him here. But if you remember from a month or so ago, or go back to one of the recording, we had admissions representatives from Otterbein join us. We've talked a lot about the college admissions process, but we also want to make sure students understand what life would be like as a student on a college campus. And so I'm excited to bring James today. He is the Director of Social Justice and Activism at Otterbein University, and he'll tell you a little bit more about what that means. But he's got a degree in sport management from Otterbein, as well as his MBA from Otterbein. So he can definitely talk about the student experience as well as what he does in his professional role. He's also active in areas of leadership development, life skills, personal branding. He's worked with elementary and middle school students in Columbus in an ESL program for Somali refugees. So he is really well equipped to talk about things in regards to workforce development and transition to college, particularly for Central Ohio youth. So I think his past skills and current professional job prepares him really well for today. So I know we are in for a treat to have him give us a little bit more insight into his role and what he provides. So James, with that, thanks so much for joining us, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you all so much. First of all, thank you all for having me. And I'm really excited to be here speaking with you all today. It's awesome to get a chance to share some of what I do. No one day is the same, so it's kind of cool. I like it like that, just that, I get a chance to meet new people every day and, have different meetings each day. So it's pretty awesome to be able to be in a job like that. I'm also very privileged to have a lot of autonomy in my position. And so you'll see when we go into the presentation where a lot of the things that we're doing on campus, they're created not only by myself, but by students. So students have a say in what they are going to learn outside of the classroom, which is awesome. What I'm going to do is go ahead and share my screen here and get into the presentation. And so when you're going to see on the first slide, the Office of Social Justice and Activism, there was some intentionality behind that. In the 1990s, it was actually called the Office of Ethnic Diversity. So when I was an undergrad at Otterbein, that's what it was called. And then in 2010, it was brought into Office of Diversity. So just wanting to showcase that diversity means not just ethnicity and race, but all these other things as well.
James, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't think we're seeing your slides. We're still seeing.
Oh yes, I'm about to pull it up here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were sharing your screen. I'm sorry. As you were.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah. So with that, students actually, we were talking about what could we call the office next? What makes the most sense? And we noticed that a lot of students were very interested in activism. And so looking at social justice from something that affects all of us to activism is actually doing something about it. And so that just kind of helped propel what the Office of Social Justice and Activism is. Because I think as times change and as people have different experiences and are able to contribute in different ways, we have to evolve with that. So as we evolved with ethnic diversity to diversity, social justice and activism, language is a very powerful thing because it helps us interpret how we should navigate spaces and what should we think about those spaces based on how they present themselves. So with social justice and activism, it's something that we all are embedded into this social justice framework, that there's something that's going on because maybe of our life experiences, our identities, that's going on in this world, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And then those things that are barriers for us, what are ways that we can remove them? And a lot of times it takes not only our communities, but communities outside of ours to recognize that there's some things happening that shouldn't be happening and to be a part of that change. And so when people think about activism, a lot of it is misbranded. So when you see activism, some people think of riots. Riots are different than activism. And so one of the hashtags that we wanted to do, and the students thought would be cool, is to say, rethink activism. What does that actually mean? Who listens to you? Who are your spheres of influence? And so learn, act, and change. And so you learn about what's going on in the world, you're acting to do something about it, and therefore being a change agent in your communities. So when we, just a little bit of defining language here. So social justice, justice in terms of the distribution of wealth and opportunities, privileges within a given society. So that's a very broad term of that. But activism is the policy or action of bringing about social change. And that shows up in a variety of forms. This is a part of our mission statement. And I don't expect for you to read through everything, but the highlighted part is everything that we do in OSJA at Otterbein University comes in one of three buckets. It's going to be part of engaged research and education. It's going to expand pathways for access and success, and as well as promoting a healthy and engaging campus climate. So I'll give you all a few examples of this. So Otterbein, what we've done is enable students to have the ability to do research projects about social justice. So sometimes people love to do it within their academic departments, and they have their faculty to support them. Sometimes it's outside of what they're actually studying, or it is looking at it in terms of who are some of the most knowledgeable people about a particular topic on campus. Maybe that's not in my academic department, but it's something I'm still passionate about and I would like to do. So we have students contributing to the body of scholarship. So they are doing research projects, they're presenting on campus, they're presenting at national conferences. They are getting their work out there, getting it published. So it's really cool just to see people involved in that level, and students carry their passion and able to share it with others. They also do a lot of teaching, so it's peer-to-peer education. So it's one thing if a message comes from me, but sometimes it hits different when it comes from another student that may be able to relate to the other students a little bit more. So that is something that we really like to do is have students help be the educators too, where it makes sense. Expanding pathways for access and success. And so you just look at what are all those things that college presents itself at the next level. It's more than just the price tag that is attached to the university for tuition or for the room and board. It's the books, it's the food, it's all of those extra hidden cost of college type things is what we call it. To give an example of how we've been involved in some of this work is that we have a Center for Community Engagement. So the Office of Social Justice and Activism and the Center for Community Engagement collaborated on an effort to do a qualitative and quantitative survey for the campus. Really what we did is we did a bunch of focus groups around campus of students of all different types of identities. And we asked them, what barriers are you experiencing in college? What would make your experience even better if you had this removed? And the top two were food insecurity and textbook affordability. Now that's not Otterbein unique. That is a lot of what colleges are experiencing and what students are experiencing throughout their time in higher education. That sometimes you have meal plans, and if you have meal plans, maybe you run out of swipes for your meal plan. It's like, I don't have any more loaded dollars on this card, or I don't have any more swipes that I can access the cafeteria. So what do I do to feed myself now? So sometimes your meal plans may not be enough. With textbooks, you can have a textbook easily $300-400, depending on what your major is and what class you're a part of. So with that, sometimes students aren't always financially ready for that type of opportunity. And it's not always explicitly taught beforehand. So what we tried to do, what we did at Otterbein was we created what's called the Promise House. So the Promise House is basically a food and hygiene pantry on campus. So we had people donate food and hygiene products. We created a space on campus. And so students can go in for no cost to them. They just go in and they sign in as a member, right? So no legal type stuff needs to happen. You just sign as a member so we know how to get a hold of you. You go in and you shop. You shop in the pantry and you're able to take stuff away. But we also do pop-up shops around campus. And so we'll have Panera donates a lot of stuff to the campus. And so we'll share a lot of Panera food with the campus as well. And also sometimes hygiene products. You need deodorant, shampoo, hair care products. You may be in a university that doesn't have a store nearby that has your specific hair care products. It depends where you are, right? So with that, we got alumni, faculty, and staff to donate hair care products for all different grades of hair. So with that, students didn't have to drive an hour this way or drive. We're conveniently located in Columbus, so maybe a 10 to 15 minute drive for Otterbein, but at some schools like Ohio University, you have to drive an hour to be able to get your hair care product. So like that, there's a difference. So it's all about proximity and representation within that community. We wanted to eliminate any type of issues there. And so we have students access those things for free. And engage in healthy campus climate. So with social justice and activism, you get conversations about race, religion, sexual orientation, ability level, mental health, all those kind of things. Now, with some of that, it presents itself as controversial, quote unquote controversial, because whenever emotion is attached to an experience, you can bring a traumatic experience to the table. So that makes you feel frustrated, angry, sad when you present that. Now, when someone disagrees with you, you carry that emotion into the conversation, right? We don't always have the best models for how to have productive dialogue, where each party feels heard and valued in the conversation. So often, and maybe you can think about your own experiences. Have you ever gone to someone and say, someone said or did this and it made me feel this way, and they completely disregarded what you said? Oh, you may be overreacting. You're probably thinking about it too much. I'm sure they didn't mean it like that. How often do we devalue each other's experiences? And so for our BIPOC population and other populations that are underrepresented, that's a big thing, that they've had their experiences devalued. And so now that creates a mindset of like, you know what, I'm not even going to share anything anymore. I'm just going to shut down and internalize it. What we want to build is a healthy and engaged campus community. And so I'm honestly can objectively say that for the most part, we have a community that loves to engage in this type of conversation because we're all trying to learn and figure things out as life happens. And so we want to be able to listen to each other productively, articulate ourselves in a way that helps people understand what's going on, and just to be able to get to a solution and a better understanding so we can walk away and say, you know what, I understand this person better. I really feel where they're coming from right now. So that we do a lot of that on campus. I'll get into some specifics later. We have a group called the Social Justice Ambassadors. So this was a group created in 2017, right after we renamed the office. The goal for that was to have student ambassadors of all different types of identities represented as an ambassador that are helping to contribute to monthly programming. So they do monthly programs on campus. They kind of help me find out what's going on campus too, because sometimes there's things where students who just won't say something to staff members. They don't feel comfortable or confident to talk about these things to faculty or staff, but they'll talk to fellow students about it. So that way, students can say, hey, we were at the cafeteria or we were in class and this happened. So these are some topics that we can address through our programming. So that helps inform us how we can be intentional and purposeful about what we roll out to the campus. Some of them love to write, and so they're contributor writers to our equity inclusion page, and they also connect community resources to Otterbein. So just being in Westerville, it would be a shame for us just to keep all the talent inside the walls of Otterbein University. We want to get people out in the community. We want to bring the community to us as well. To give a couple examples, for those of you that are familiar with the Orange is the New Black, so Piper Kerman, who the show is about, actually came and spoke at Otterbein, and she does a lot of work inside of the facilities, inside of the prison facilities for folks who are incarcerated. So there were some needs there that they wanted to bring current students in to work with those who are incarcerated who want to continue their education and have blended classrooms. So as a result, a few of our social justice ambassadors were some of those students who engaged with those. And also there was a big, like, you think about hygiene products being distributed in a facility where people are incarcerated. There's going to be a shortage of that. And so that's one of those social justice things that we looked at is there are so many holes in our criminal justice system. We have Brian Stevenson, who wrote Just Mercy, who was, featured as Michael B. Jordan in the movie Just Mercy. He came and spoke to our campus too and helped us really identify a lot of what those holes are. And then what can we do as a campus to help address those things? And so as a college campus, education was a no-brainer for us. So we work with a lot of local facilities to provide education, representation, all those kind of things for folks. So what I'm going to do, I'll do this at the end. I'll take you to our equity inclusion page on our website. So I'll do that last. We have so many student organizations that you could be a part of. And so each school kind of has their version of these things. Some may not have all of them, but so when you're looking at the next level, if you're thinking about college, look to see what type of diversity-based student organizations are at that university, because that's going to show an intentional support system that could be built on campus. So we have a Minivision Group, which is a men's leadership organization. Most of the men in that group are men of color. African American Student Union, Student Veterans Organization, Heritage Latino Americans, Sisters United. Most of those leaders are women of color. International Student Association. So we work not only with domestic students, but with international students. So even though we don't recruit the students, we help make sure the students feel supported or involved on campus when they get here. So we do a lot of the programming for our international students as well. We have the Muslim Student Association. Free Zone is our LGBTQIA+ organization. And then, like I said before, the social justice ambassadors. And so it's one of those things where it serves a twofold approach because it's a built-in support system for students, but then it also enables them to take what they would like to share with the campus and create some very meaningful educational opportunities. So sometimes this is a program that they may throw for campus. Sometimes they do community service and they'll help neighborhoods in the Columbus area, in the Westerville area, or it's a food drive, whatever the case may be. Coats, for the homeless, whatever the situation is. They want to be as powerful as they can and as influential as they can in their community. And you don't have to be part of that identity group to be in the group. So we have a lot of allies, and I'll talk about allyship here in a second, that are a part of each one of these organizations that they say, hey, I'm here to learn. Social justice is important to me. I first have to understand what's happening and then how I can be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And so that's not something that you could just come up with yourself. You got to really learn when it comes to communities that you're not familiar with. Some of our staple programs are the NEST program. So we do this every August, and it's a pre-orientation program. So you have an orientation with all the first year students, right, that are together before your first day of class will start. Well, NEST comes right before that. And so what that enables folks to do is that we get a small population of students. Most of them are students of color. Most of them are first generation college students. Some of them are even from out of town that aren't familiar with the area. So we get everyone together and we do like 3.5 days of social activities, educational activities, and a service component each year. And so we try to do excursions to get people, just talking and try to get any of the nerves out and any questions that need to be answered, that you have folks right then and there that can help you. We provide mentors for first year students that are coming in, and that mentor sticks with you as long as you want them there. So that is a great opportunity to actually build friends and build relationships and make friends, network some, because we bring in alumni, we bring in faculty, community members before your first day of class even starts. Under the Lights, I'm a big sports person. So Under the Lights, we teach diversity through the lens of sports. So we talk about race, religion, socioeconomics, all those kind of things through sports. And so it's been very helpful because sometimes we're not as well versed in some areas of identity as others. So with that, it's easier to look at a sports situation and say, okay, I understand this situation here and how it could be improved. Now, what does that look like for me in my neighborhood? What does that look like for me in my classroom, in the workplace? What does that look like there? We also do an orientation for our international students, and we try to take them places that they would like to go around the United States. MLK Junior Convocation, so we have a speaker every year come in, and we have students as a part of that will read powerful passages from people that they admire that are in civil rights movements. Heritage Month programming, so you look at all the significance like that each month has. So for February, Black History Month, Women's History Month here in March, Native American Heritage Month, November, Hispanic Heritage Month, we have programs around each one of those months. And so a lot of times we try to connect with the student groups and we do a collaborative program. So that way they're doing some teaching, we're doing some teaching on our end, we have a good time. And we also have guest speakers coming on campus too. And we've been doing everything virtually. So we've been able to still sustain involvement, even though we have to be virtual for a lot of things. Social Justice Week, actually for us, that's next week. We do that every March. And with that, each day of the week, we pick one week that throughout the month of March, and we dedicate it to a specific type of social justice. So for instance, Monday of next week is food justice. We have being your authentic self in the workplace on Tuesday. So we're bringing in alumni and employers from around the community that are saying, hey, this is what we're doing for social justice. This is what we're doing to support our employees holistically. So we're not just supporting you professionally, but personally as well. There's a big difference. So for those of you that are looking at what the workforce could look like, look at companies that are going to support you holistically. So we have those there as well. We have how to be an activist and take care of yourself at the same time. We have a Women's History Month symposium on Thursday. We have disabilities and information access talks on Friday. So every day is a little different. Noble Transitions is actually a multicultural graduation ceremony. So this actually precedes the larger graduation ceremony. And what we do, what usually happens is the people that were in the NEST program, come to celebrate with each other, 4 years later or what have you, when they go to walk across that stage, and they get a kente stole and a nice ceremony, faculty, staff, and friends all come out, family come out to celebrate just you making it to the next, and on to the next chapter of your life. A lot of times we try to talk about allyship in different spaces, and that's something that we all have a responsibility. And so there's different reasons why people do the right thing. Some people do the right thing because it makes them feel good. It's out of their own self-interest, or it's for someone that they personally care about. So if I may not do the right thing, if it's someone I don't know, but hey, it's a friend, it's a family member. So yes, I'll advocate with you. I'll sign this petition. I'll protest, whatever the case is. Then some people do it for altruistic reasons. And folks sometimes deal with guilt if they feel that they're part of a privileged group. And they say, oh, wow, I feel so sorry for this group of people. And they end up doing for the community instead of with the community. So sometimes what you'll see is that you have folks that will do things thinking that they're helping, but they're not actually really helping because they haven't even spoken with the community that is being directly affected by something to see what they actually need and how they could actually be supported. And then sometimes they even remove themselves from blame of anything and say, hey, I'm the good one. I'm not part of the problem. And so that really removes themselves from being self-reflective. And that daily reflection that we should all be going through to say, this is what happened today. I could have done this better today. I could have changed it. I could have reacted better today. They remove themselves from sometimes from that. Ultimately, we try to get everyone who is involved in our office to the social justice standpoint of advocacy, because that's looking at injustice as an issue at large. So it's not just about my friend, it's not just about my family member, but there are more people like them that are experiencing some very similar things. And if I want to support them, I have to first find out what that community needs. and then that this is something that impacts all of us. So by someone else, getting a policy change, that doesn't hurt me anyway. That actually makes all of us better. And so it's that type of lens that helps us along very well. We try to get people. What does that look like in action? Understanding that we all have privilege and identities. It just may be different based on who we are and where we are. That there are systemic issues that, yes, people are the problem, but there's also policies that are embedded into our government, into our schools, into the workplaces that make things very challenging. And so we want to change those things. Being willing to stand up to friends or family when something happens. What happens when you want to lovingly challenge someone, but also want to salvage the relationship? It becomes much harder to do that because you don't want to lose a friend, you don't want to lose a family member. In this work of equity and inclusion, sometimes that does happen, but sometimes you're able to connect with people in a way where they say, you know what, I appreciate that. I never thought about it that way. Thank you for, calling me out on that with that situation. Also educating yourself on things that you're not familiar with, because we don't want to always be the ones to educate people. So why should we, do that to other communities, right? Go on the internet, find, listen to podcasts, find reliable resources that can help you make sense of what's going on here. And always, be media literate, look at different types of media vehicles, even though there may be ones that you don't traditionally agree with. I personally still read those. That way, if I come across a person who shares that belief system, I can understand maybe where they're coming from. That way I know how to approach the situation. That way I can say, this is safe for me to continue this conversation, or I need to exit stage left, and I'm not going to be able to have an impact here. Sometimes we may feel defensive, embarrassed, guilty, uncomfortable, angry. Those are natural emotions. You shouldn't feel bad for feeling that way, but it's what you do with that emotion that really matters. Do you allow that to encourage you to understand yourself and the people around you, or do you disconnect with people when you feel that way? Because you can't properly advocate for something that you don't understand. So that way we have to actively attempt to understand the identities around us and understand ourselves, because no one group of people is a monolith. So there's not just the same experience for every group. There are times where we have different Black experiences, right? Me being light skinned, I have a different Black experience than some of my darker Black and brown folks. So that's an example of that. If you want to keep up with what we're doing, we're pretty active on social media, especially on Instagram. So if you want to follow us there and just kind of see what programs and initiatives we're doing. Now that we're doing a lot of things virtually, it opens the door, and we would love for high school students, community partners, what have you, to just drop in on one of our Zoom programs and participate, or even if you just want to sit back and listen, we'd love to have you join us. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you on our website here. So if you go to Otterbein's website, and you go on the landing page and you'll scroll down here to the bottom where it says equity and inclusion. You click on that, and I'll take you to a page. I clicked on diversity, inclusion, advocates, and resources. What this enables you to do is look at all the different types of diversity and the support systems that are for different groups of folks, different populations. And so we have them broken down by identity type, and then also just some general support systems on campus too. When you're looking, I don't care if you're looking for a workplace or whatever college you're looking at, check out people's websites, try to do this homework and say, what are they going to do to support me specifically? What infrastructures are there to say that, hey, we're going to support you? Because you can slap anything on a brochure. You can, say what you want in your marketing materials, but it's ultimately what you do. What are the artifacts of that? And how can the school support you, because you're paying to go there, right? If it's the workplace, same scenario. You're in an interview, you should be asking people, what does this company's commitment to equity and inclusion look like? How they supported employees, How do they invest in their employees? Maybe down the road, you would like to continue school at some point. My employer paid for my master's degree. So like just saying, like, if there's something that you want to do, there are companies out there that help you along with that. So with that being said, that's the end of my presentation. I hope you're able to take something away from this. I know I went through kind of quickly, but we have a lot of information going on. And so if there's, I'm going to put my email here in the chat, and it could be shared however you all see fit. If anyone has any questions that may arise in the future.
Great, thank you, James. I think that was really helpful for so many different realms. I think, in part, not even knowing that offices such as yours even exist on campus. And again, all the resources then that you provide to students, and really important resources as well. I want to open it up to see if any of the coaches or students that have joined have any questions.
I got a question for you. What for you looking to go to college route? Why is it important to be connected to your diversity inclusion group on campus? Like, as a student, I'm already thinking like, hey, whether white, black, brown, whatnot, I'm going to college. This should be a professional space. Like, I should be respected as a student beyond my color, right? But obviously we have these type of organizations and leaders like yourself in these spaces. So just if you could talk to why is this work important, and why do we need these on campuses?
Absolutely. I think it's of utmost importance, because whenever I think about it in terms of what spaces were actually built for you. And in the implementation of colleges and universities, those weren't always meant for people of color. Those are always meant for different populations. So what happens there, that there's always opportunities for spaces not to be inclusive, and for problematic and toxic things to occur. And so whenever you're dealing with a space where you can have some toxic mindsets, you have some really good people that do really good things. You have some people that mean well and just don't go about it the right way. And you have some people that are very apathetic to this type of stuff and don't really care about that because they don't feel it directly affects them. When something happens, or if you just want to have a better understanding of things, it's nice to have a built-in support system, a place that you can go to, even if it's just like weekly. So our student groups meet weekly, some meet every 2 weeks, and they just go in, and sometimes they're just like, I can't believe this happened to me in the residence hall today. Someone asked me, oftentimes someone asked me about my hair, someone touched my hair without my permission. All these kind of different things. Some people said that they've never seen a person that looked like me before, because they're coming, this person may be coming from a small town. They really never had quality interactions with people of color. So now they're looking at you as, I'm going to ask you all the questions, and I'm going to judge my perception on people of color based on my interactions with you. That's an unfair pressure that we have that not everyone else has. So with that, it's a space to be able to say, you know what, it's not all on me to do that. We can come together, provide educational opportunities as we see fit on our time. And then also sometimes you just need a place to vent. So sometimes the meetings are just, venting of what has happened, but it's also how we support each other. In a generation where information and connections are more accessible than any time before, also studies show that students feel more lonely than they ever have before. That counseling services are going through the roof because people are tapping into the school counselors or the employer counselors more than any time before. Why is that? So if you have people that you can count on to support you, friends, and then they can introduce you to faculty and staff that can help you, whatever the situation calls for, it's nice to have those people around, because that way you're not by yourself.
James, could you talk a little bit about, Otterbein itself is a PWI, right, a predominantly white institution. So could you talk about some of, and you alluded to this earlier, maybe even what, you've talked about some of the services that you provide non-white students and BIPOC students in particular, but kind of what percentage of students that come to Otterbein are from more diverse populations, and what have you seen as sort of the biggest challenge then that they do face when they come to campus?
Yeah, I'd say, I think the last time I saw it was 26% students of color on campus. Now that number feels kind of good compared to some of the other schools and what they can offer with that. But at the end of the day, you don't always feel that 26%, because you still may be the only one in your classroom that looks like you, or one of few. And then maybe one of few in your residence hall if you decide to live on a campus. So sometimes there is that, though our numbers are growing, there is that sense of, I haven't been able to plug in and connect yet with folks. And so a lot of the services that we provide are for those intentional purposes, that if we can get students to plug in and find something that they feel that they can thrive in, and they have a network of people that they can count on, or they have at least a go-to person, the chances of their graduating go through the roof. And so with that, I would say that's one of the things that comes along with it. Now, what COVID has presented for us is that there are students still living on campus, but you think about a lot of the students decided to just commute now. So now that 26% feels even smaller because they're not in proximity anymore. So it does have a little bit of a feeling of isolation. And that's why it's important to get into these things. So maybe you can't do person to person all the time, but you can at least have communications with folks. I would say, I think it's over 90% of our students are Pell eligible. So you're looking at your estimated family contributions. And so we have a lot of first generation students. We have a lot of students that get huge financial aid packages from the university. And then we try to minimize loans as much as we can. So sometimes it's a socioeconomic issue too, where we have to make sure that we're working with financial services and that everyone's clear about what their package is and how to handle their money accordingly and get them work study jobs on campus. So that way they can help pay for their books and food outside of their meal plans and stuff like that. So really right away, we try to engage students on that front.
All right, well, I'll ask another one. So you also went there as an undergrad. What was your favorite part about being an undergraduate student at Otterbein?
My favorite part was that I got a chance to do a lot of things on campus. So one of the benefits of a smaller campus is that it's a little bit easier to navigate and a little bit easier to connect with folks, to where maybe if an opportunity arises, you're like the first person they think of. So the way I hustled through college was like, I want all my professors to know my name. Staff members to know my name. And that way there's some type of relation. So even if we just walk across, the same path on campus, we say hi to each other. In the classroom, I paid attention to where I sat. I didn't go sit in the back of the classroom. I kind of sat in like the T shape. So if you think of a professor sitting in front of the classroom, like a T shape, that's where they can see. What I try to do is I networked my way around campus. So even though I was sport management, I loved to do communications. So I got a chance to co-host a radio show on campus. I got a chance to commentate high school and college football games, because I always wanted to be a commentator. And that's not in my department. But I had friends in the department who introduced me to the faculty in the department. And we networked, and I got an opportunity there. I got a chance to work with alumni as an undergrad to get experiences and learn about the workspace. That I felt prepared there. I got a chance to be an event planner, to learn how to run a meeting, to do all these kind of things that are valuable in whatever step of life that you're in. And so going to Otterbein, that was one of the things that I took away, was being able to just kind of do a little bit of everything to the best of my ability, to what my schedule allowed. I was in the admissions office. I was a host and tour guide. So I housed students that were coming to visit, and I showed families around the campus. So I got a chance to do all that.
So I have I got a blended question.
Okay.
So as you know, we work with, young people that are, whether wanting to go to college, go to work. On Thursdays, we kind of have like these career highlights. But you had, and I say that to say this, you had mentioned earlier about just being your authentic self, right? So I see you got the Steelers in the background. You got, I want to say that's Kendrick up there, right?
Yeah.
You spoke about, being, a lighter skinned Black individual at working at a PWI.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the blended question is like, what made you want to be in this space, right? Like, how did you get to this point, and how were you able to be your authentic self, knowing that you're going to a private institution, right? Like, and I don't know if you mentioned this already, if you're from Columbus or not, but maybe your peers even looking at you like, bro, what are you doing over there? Like, maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I would say I'm born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. And so I'm biracial, so Black father, white mother. And conversations about race at family gatherings were pretty interesting. So at a very young age, I had to be able to kind of think and navigate that space very early. And in that, because I had to talk to people that I loved, I wanted them to still be in my family. I still wanted to hang out with my cousins and do all this kind of stuff. But it kind of threw me into the fire early on. How do I talk about things? Because ultimately, I was experiencing things that my white family members were not. And I was going to schools with predominantly Black students. And then to hear their narratives on predominantly Black students, I'm like, okay, you got it all twisted. I'm the one that's in the school every day. So like, you're making these assumptions about people, and now you're talking about my friends, right? So like, then what do you actually think about me? And they're like, oh, we don't mean you. So then it was like, you saw me as the exception, right? Because I'm in your family or what have you. In going through school, I was never, in some spaces, I wasn't Black enough to be with the Black students, and I wasn't white enough to be with the white students, right? Quotation marks around those. I had to learn what it is for me to be comfortable. What does it mean to be James Priceoff III? And be comfortable in my own skin. I spent some of my time trying to fit in too much with different spaces, to the point where I didn't like myself. At the point I was like, this is too much work, trying to be someone I'm not. So who am I? And then if people really care about me, they're just gonna have to accept that. And I could be in both spaces and still be productive and still be myself. It wasn't until high school when I found that out my junior year of high school is when I became more confident in myself and kind of found myself there. And I went to Columbus Alternative High School, by the way. So I kind of found that space very helpful because I was surrounded by so many different identities that helped me actually figure out, be comfortable in my own skin. So I say, if I had to do that for me in my journey, how many other people are doing that in their journeys based on their respective identities? And if I can help them navigate that space in those conversations, I think it'll be really beneficial. So I have, some of my, brown and Black friends that were talking to me, they used to make jokes and say, all right, James, we'd be in the car and they're like, James, if we get pulled over, you're going to talk to the police, right? And I'm like, okay. And I used to laugh and think about it, but it never dawned on me that that's why they were asking me to do that. And I thought it was because, I'm pretty good with words and I'm an only child. So I'm used to having to make up stories and make things sound good and put blame on others. But because if I broke something in the house, I couldn't blame it on anyone. It was just me. So I had to be creative. But no, it was because that laughter was out of also fear. And once I got old enough to understand that, and then having conversations with my dad about, law enforcement interactions, and those of you may be too young to remember the students, but Allen Iverson was one of my favorite basketball players. So I had braids. So when I would go and I would dress just like Allen Iverson. And my dad had a talk with me. He said, I don't care if you do this, but if you show up to a job interview, people are going to create a narrative about you that's not true. In my opinion, I was like, I don't care what they say because that's not me. But he was trying to protect me at the same time. And so it's like, what other households have these type of conversations, right? So when I got into the D&I space, I said, if I can help other people navigate these things, I think that's awesome. And I get a chance to learn at the same time. So, colorism is something that's really big in the Black and Brown communities. And once I realized that I get treated with privilege because I'm lighter, and people always asking, where are you from? Or what are you? And then, that conversation happens too. So yeah, that's kind of how it's going.
That's good, man. That's good feedback. I know a lot of people that's watching now and they'll be able to watch this after, just hearing your story. I think we'll have some young folks that will hopefully it clicks and they're like, yo, someone else is experiencing what I'm experiencing, and me being my authentic self, like, that's okay. Like, a lot of our young people probably tend to question, like, man, is who I am, like, okay for this next level? Right. It's almost like those things like, oh, am I good for this level? And then it's like, okay, there's another level. Am I good for that level? And it's like, no, you good with all things if you stay true to yourself. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said before, no one group of people is a monolith, right? We all have different characteristics and strengths that we bring to the table and just personal interests. So don't let anyone pigeonhole you into any type of anything. And so a lot of times we tend to bully each other and to each other's detriment. And so like, don't perpetuate that type of behavior, because you won't want someone to do that to you. And so if you want to do this kind of club and be this type of major, and some of your friends maybe not feeling it and say, why aren't you just doing this? Then say, no, this is my path. This is what I want to do in my life. Because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you're the author of your book, right? You're the one writing your story. You don't want to end up older with regrets and say, I wish I would have made this decision, or wish I would have done this differently.
And I want to be cognizant of time, and this is a really good conversation that I don't want to cut off. But one last thought as you're saying that, and maybe you could talk really quickly, right? One of the nice things then about college is it gives you that chance to maybe have lots of different chapters of that story that you're writing, right? And maybe you can even start a chapter or take that risk and then stop it because there's some support in place. There's some support nets in place. You can kind of try new things. And then if it's not what you want to be or who you want to be, you can also then change course.
That's right. I came in as an athletic training major in undergrad, and we did it was a cat dissection lab. My first year in college, I looked at the cat looked at me, and I was like, nah, this ain't gonna be it. This is not it. I had a lab partner, and I said, you could dissect the cat. I have decent handwriting. I would go ahead and do the labeling of the muscles and ligaments if you want to do that. That way we still contribute to the cause. But it was at that point where I felt that maybe the science side of things isn't what I like the most. That I like it, but I like it on my own time, right? And then I connected with people on campus to the Center for Career and Professional Development. All campuses have some type of format of that. And they helped me figure out I like the business side of things more than the science side of things. So then I switched to sport management and never looked back.
Well, as you already know, we will be back again. Thank you, James, for coming through. You dropped some real jewels, some real gems to our young folks, and beyond just our young folks, our community, right? Like, we're here serving our people, and we're trying to educate, right? So that we can occupy these spaces safely, effectively, and efficiently. So I appreciate your time. We're back at it again with our College Readiness Wednesdays. We only got a few more sessions, you guys. So those that's out there watching, we got a few more sessions. I believe we got a panel coming up soon. So tap in with us next Wednesday, again, 3:30. You can go to our social media at Lead the Way Learning Academy. That's our Facebook and our YouTube. You'll find this session there. And then you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at LTWLA _ Columbus. And as always, if you want to follow me, because I'm the dopest coach on the team, you can follow my Instagram at LTWLA _ Chris. And for those that have been tuning into our career highlights on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Join us tomorrow. Our link is in the bios on our social media. We have I want to say it's a music industry career highlights. So those that are interested in music, as James, he has Kendrick in the back, we'll be able to show you guys how to tap into that space. So, please continue to tell your friends and family about our organization. If you're interested in joining Lead the Way Learning Academy, you can go to our website at leadthewaylearningacademy.com, and you can find our intake application and some of the resources and documentation that you'll need to join the family. So again, thank you all for coming, and see you guys tomorrow and next week. Peace.